Welcome to Contracting Conversations. I'm Scott Williams, and I'm joined by my partner, Jim Valley. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Jordan Miller, who's the Learning Asset Manager for Con 3990V, and that's the Con certification exam. Welcome to the show, Jordan.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jim. It's such a great privilege to be here. Looking forward to discussing this very important topic that has a lot of interest to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're happy to have you here recording on the podcast. So to get us going, Jordan, tell us a little bit about the exam's purpose and maybe some of the scope that goes along with that.
Yeah, Scott, that's a great place to start when students want to know the why. And so the why starts with the exam is part of the Back to Basics contracting certification framework. It's used to assess the foundational knowledge and skills of our defense acquisition workforce. So really what this exam is doing is testing our workforce at the point of initial readiness. And so this exam, in terms of its scope, is rooted in the DOD Contracting Competency Model, which defines the key guiding principles as well as the technical competencies that a contracting practitioner must know at the basic foundational level for each phase of the contracting lifecycle, which includes, of course, the pre-award, post-award. In terms of its development, it was developed and modeled after other professional certification exams. Some key examples for you there would be the National Contract Management Association's Certified Federal Contract Manager exam, as well as the Project Management Institute's Project Management Professional, or the PMP. And so we treat this exam with the same level of standards and integrity as those common commercial professional certification exams that a lot of people know about. And we utilize the same ANSI standards as those exams as well. One major update and key difference from last year is that the Federal Acquisition Certification and Contracting on the civilian side, or the FACC, now includes the Con 3990V Contracting Certification Exam as part of its requirements for certification. And of course, this supports the reciprocity between the DOD as well as the federal civilian agencies regarding contracting functional certification, which of course helps to increase parity between the civilian workforce as well as the DOD workforce. So now when you achieve your certification through the FACC program or the DOD Back to Basics, the WEA modernization program, there's reciprocity there. So if you're certified in one of those areas and you shift jobs out of DOD to a civilian agency, you get to keep your certification.
All right. Awesome, Jordan. Thank you so much for that. So is there any way you can just go into the details, exam details for 3990?
Yeah, Jim, and thanks. So what I always recommend that prospective examinee candidates do, there's a great web resource on the Defense Pricing and Contracting website. On there, they have FAQs that are posted, frequently asked questions. The most important things to know about this exam is that the passing score is 70% or higher. So this is a pass or fail type of exam. The baseline in terms of the minimum threshold requirement that you have to achieve on the exam is 70%. Now, that is a little bit different from a typical class at the Defense Acquisition University. For example, many of our examinees have gone through Con 1100 through 1400. Through that journey, through that process, they've had to achieve an 80% or higher score, or an accumulation of 80% or higher of the total points in order to pass those classes. Same thing if you take one of our online training assets. You know, you consume the training and then you take a test at the end, you got to achieve 80% or higher. Well, as I said, we modeled this exam using the models of the National Contract Management Association, or the NCMA, as well as the PMI's PMP certification exam. Part of the industry standard is that 70% or higher sort of threshold baseline. So we've institutionalized that as part of the certification exam for contracting. So I'll tell my students when I do teach the prep course, look, aim for that 70%. Anything above 70% is gravy, right? There are 150 questions on the exam. The amount of time for the exam that you're given is 3 hours. It is important for you to know as well that questions are randomized from a secure database. So there are 150 questions that you will be presented on the exam, but just know that we have 200 plus questions in a test data bank. So questions will be randomized from that test bank. No two exams are identical. So it'll be a different experience each time that an examinee takes the exam. It is closed book, closed resource. It's just you and your brain. The exam is administered by a contractor called Pearson VUE. Examinees may choose to take the exam at a Pearson VUE test center. These test centers are available throughout the world. What's great about Pearson VUE is they made available to us a Pearson VUE DAU landing page on their website. From there, you can actually research from their website to locate a test center near you. Alternatively, if you cannot locate a test center that's near you, or you wish to choose to take the exam virtually because that's just your preference, examinees may choose to take the exam virtually using Pearson VUE's OnView application. And that would actually involve the installation of the application on the examinee's device. And so, again, I want to urge folks to go back to that Con 3990 DOD certification exam FAQ document that I mentioned earlier. That's available on the Defense Pricing and Contracting's website. It's got a lot of great information in there about the exam and about a link to Pearson VUE's website as well. One last thing I want to mention is that if you're not successful in your first attempt, that's okay, right? DOD has acknowledged that this is a challenging exam. I like to call it a challenging yet achievable exam, but DOD allows for the exam to be taken no more than 3 times within a 12-month period. So if you are unsuccessful on that initial attempt, there is sort of a 30-day cool-off window. And then after that period is up, you're able to schedule and take the exam again. But DOD, as part of policy, allows our examinees to take that exam no more than 3 attempts within a 12-month period.
All right. Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan, great job going through the exam details. Really appreciate that. A lot of good information there. So talk to us a little bit about the exam performance, how students have done, what information you have on that detail.
Absolutely, Scott. Yeah, exam performance, this is something that we monitor regularly. This is a big deal. This exam is a big deal in the professional life of our examinees, of our learners. And so we're constantly monitoring the performance. So far, within FY24, we have delivered almost, actually over 1,500 examinations. Our pass rate as of right now is 79%. That really jives with our historical pass rates since we deployed the exam. Back in FY22, for instance, that's when the exam deployed, the pass rate was 78%. Last year, it was nearly 81%. So I'm kind of hoping that as we continue to finish out this fiscal year, I'm hoping to see the 79 turn into an 80, but still very much indicative of a well-balanced exam. Our average score that we're seeing this FY is 76%. And the highest score, which by the way, comes from a non-DAU instructor. One of the cool things and one of the things that we really recommend to our DAU con instructors is to take this exam. And we actually do have the highest score of 96%, which was actually achieved by a non-DAU instructor. So big shout out to the person that did that. That's really impressive. The majority of the exams are delivered at a test center, majority being like almost 90%. So that's very high. So most examinees have a preference or seem to have a preference to take the exam at a Pearson VUE or Pearson VUE sponsored test center. The pass rate for on-site delivery is higher than those who take the exam virtually using Pearson VUE's OnView application. You can compare a pass rate of 78 or really 79% compared to 74. So there is a small difference there, but the average score, though, interestingly, is fairly close. 77% at a test center versus 74% with it being taken virtually. This year, this was very interesting to me, and I think this is something that can encourage folks who maybe have just scheduled their exam or have a plan to schedule their exam within, the next 90 days or so. But this year, this fiscal year, 82% of examinees passed the exam on their first attempt. That's a great achievement. This is significant because first attempt exams represented over 85% of the total delivered exams. So that's a pretty strong correlation there. And again, one of the things that I would like for our prospective examinees who are listening to this, trying to find out more information about the exam, trying to understand what they're getting themselves into, right? A lot of our folks that take this exam are successful on their first attempt. If you're not successful, you'll have another opportunity, of course. Overall, the exam continues to be a challenging yet achievable test of foundational knowledge. One thing that I try to do, particularly when I'm teaching a prep course or even when I'm teaching the other contracting foundational courses such as Con 1100 or Con 1400, I do talk about the contracting certification exam. And I always advise my learners to celebrate the win, right? So when you pass this exam, make sure you celebrate it because you should be proud of this accomplishment. It is a major milestone in this back to basics framework. On the flip side, examinees that did not achieve success, don't get discouraged about that. There are plenty of resources that are made available to you from DAU, this podcast being one of those. The Con 3910, Con 3900, you have a network of instructors that you have met and formed relationships with over the course of your academic journey. So there's plenty of resources made available to you, and you just got to be better prepared for the next attempt. The final note that I want to make here is this exam is regularly evaluated. Again, it's supremely important. We want to maintain the highest standards of quality and security over this exam. So therefore, new questions may be introduced. Current older questions that have been around for a while, we're constantly doing some analysis over those questions. We may modify those questions. We may delete them based on how well those questions perform. This is a professional certification exam that marks a significant achievement for our examinees. So, it's important to our contracting community that the exam fulfills that role in providing that essential step in that certification process. And again, the basic tenet of this exam is to signify that once you've passed this exam, you are at the point of initial readiness.
Great, Jordan. Hey, thank you for the detail. That's really a good rundown of the performance, and I think we'll put people on a good footing as they go in to take this exam. So thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Every year, last year we got an update from Darren on how we're doing. So it's nice to give our listeners an update for FY24. So it sounds like it's right in line with what we've seen in the past. So outstanding. So for those listening to this, what would you tell them? How do they need to prepare to take the exam? Any tips you want to give them? I know Darren gave some last year, but I'm looking forward to hearing what we have learned since last year and what tips you might have.
Yeah. So one of the things that I always start with when I'm having this type of conversation with a prospective examinee, or perhaps even someone who is going on their second attempt, I want to remind them that this exam is not a comprehensive exam designed to specifically test you on what you learned in Con 1100 through 1400. Okay, we kind of got to get that myth sort of busted there. As I stated at the beginning of the podcast, the bones, the roots of this exam is defined in that DOD Contracting Competency Model. And one of the things that I think is very important for prospective examinees to do is to download that. And I know that we're going to make that available on this podcast down below. There'll be links. And so one of the links, you'll actually have a direct link to the DOD Contracting Competency Model. Now, that competency model serves as the root for this contracting certification exam. Well, guess what? That competency model also serves as a major influencer, major source to Con 1100, 12, 13, 1400 classes as well. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to bust the myth of, well, this is just a comprehensive exam that's testing me over, my Con 1100 through 1400. But again, I want to bust that myth, but I also want to bust the myth. Well, none of that stuff is important. Well, it is important. We encourage you to use the note that you accumulated, that you took during those courses. Go back, look in your student workbooks, look in your student guides. Go back, review the course curriculum. Look at your assignments. This is a great source of information and resources that you can bake into your study and preparation process. One of the things that you can definitely use the DOD Contracting Competency Model is that Contracting Competency Model provides you essentially a work breakdown structure of contracting. It provides you with all the guiding principles, things like, and what I mean by guiding principles are the principles that have application throughout the entirety of the contracting life cycle. Things like contract principles, like, the elements of authority, standards of conduct, so ethics, situational assessment, team dynamics, how we work together as a team, how we communicate, how we document business judgments, and those types of things. And then as well, you've also got each life cycle phase there that's mapped into that competency model. And then you've got the technical competencies that are associated with each life cycle phase. And what I mean by life cycle phase, I mean pre-award, award, and post-award. And so you can look at that and you can find your sort of areas of weaknesses, areas of concern. Go back to that Con 1100 through 1400 coursework, areas you don't feel as confident in, or maybe it's been a while since you really digested that material. And so use that, because again, the DOD Contracting Competency Model certainly is very important, because it's the bones of this exam. So and you can use that as part of your preparation and study. I also highly encourage my students in Con 1100, 1400 to take the prep course. As a matter of fact, I frame it this way. I tell my students, if you were working for me, if I was your supervisor, I would force you, well, not force you, but I would mandate that you would take the prep course. Even though DOD recognizes that it's an optional course, I think individually, folks that have to take this exam should certainly consider Con 3910 as something that they really need to do in order to increase their chances for success. And the data proves this. Approximately 90% of examinees who have just taken Con 3910 this FY have passed the exam with an average score of 79%. So we're seeing some fruit bear with that labor of having to, I've got to take another course, but it's a fruitful course. And the data proves that it really is a smart decision to do that. So 3910 is the complete online version of the prep course. Con 3900 is a 4-day instructor-led prep class. That's a follow-on course to Con 3910. It is not necessary, and I want to emphasize that, it is not necessary to take both courses. Con 3900 is primarily intended for examinees who have taken Con 3910 and failed or were unsuccessful on the certification exam on their first attempt. So let's just say that you've completed your coursework, you take Con 3910, you go into the exam, you don't achieve the results that you wanted, you're unsuccessful. Now you need to go back and take Con 3900 before you have your second attempt. There are several things I want to highlight from the prep courses, and I'm going to really centrally focus on Con 3910 because it has just excellent tools. I know I kind of sound like a car salesman on this maybe, but I really believe in it. The course itself contains absolute gold with those self-paced lessons that highlight and summarize all your guiding principles, your technical competencies associated with each phase of the contracting life cycle. Again, absolute gold in my opinion. And I can tell you that based on experience because I have taken this exam and kind of set a high standard for myself, right? In doing that, I don't think I could have exceeded my standard had I not gone back and reviewed some of the curriculum out of Con 3910. That course also provides a practice exam. All right, so the practice exam is a tool, okay? It's a tool that will help examinees simulate. This is how I like to kind of frame it. This will help you simulate a 150 question exam because our practice exam in Con 3910 is composed of 150 questions. Now, it's going to be a different look and feel from what you're going to experience on the Pearson VUE application, when you go take it at the test center or you take it on the OnView. Our practice exam is administered through Microsoft Forms. So it's a different user interface, it's a different user experience. But at the same time, though, you are presented with questions of a very similar nature to those on the real certification exam. And you get to experience taking a 150 question exam in a controlled environment. And so I always tell my students, use that to, have your phone sitting there, put a 3-hour timer on the phone, and then see how far you get. The other thing about the practice exam that I really love to point out as a potential help area is take the feedback from that exam. So that feedback, so when you get a question wrong on that practice exam, it's going to tell you, the right answer, and it's also going to give you a FAR reference. Go and look in the FAR. Go and dig. Find out why you were wrong by going into the FAR or the DFARs and reading. I always try to push my students when I do teach the prep course to, go beyond just, the curriculum, right? If the curriculum references something out of FAR Part 15 or FAR Part 16 with contract types, go in there and look at it. Go in there and read it for yourself. A way that I try to put it, hopefully, folks understand it, is get the voice of the FAR. What does the voice of the FAR sound like in your mind? And then when you're taking this exam, you're gonna see things, obvious distractors as you go through your logic of reading the questions, doing the analysis of each of the choices that are given to you. You're going to find, that the FAR would never put it that way. That's an obvious distractor. And so you go through your logical process of eliminating, and then, as you eliminate choices, you increase your odds of getting the answer correct. Some of the practical tips that I like to really push out is, hey, go after that low-hanging fruit. Go pull up the Con 3990 course card on the DAU iCatalog page. In the objectives section of that course catalog, it provides you with 20 FAR parts in there. Go ahead and memorize for those 20 FAR parts that are identified on the course card. Go ahead and memorize the FAR part numbers and titles. Okay, that is low-hanging fruit. And in my experience in taking this exam myself, when I encountered those types of questions, I just built momentum. It was like I was just clicking, And so, get after this low-hanging fruit of the FAR part numbers and titles, those 20 FAR parts that are identified in that course card. Memorize the uniform contract format, the parts and sections. You can find those in FAR 14201-1 as well as FAR 15204-1. And study the most commonly used forms, which are highlighted well in the Con 3910 curriculum. Another piece of advice that I don't know that I've come to the realization of this over time. So this is something that probably not a lot of folks have kind of pushed out in terms of guidance. So this is kind of new. I recommend that you go ahead and you read all of FAR Part 15. I would say take an afternoon. If you're preparing for this exam, you got scheduled within the next 30 days or so, take an afternoon, take some time, really go through FAR Part 15, make some notes, because I promise you, many questions on the exam stem directly from FAR Part 15. So, I mean, I think that's some really good, valuable, practical advice and something easy that you can do. You just got to kind of be disciplined and devote the time to it. The last thing I'll talk about, because I do get this question a lot, is, hey, when should I schedule the exam? Well, that's a decision that you need to make for yourself, right? Schedule the exam when you feel ready. The exam will be available. There's plenty of exams to go around. This is not like oh my gosh, I got to sign up for, Con 1100 quick, because the seats are filling up and all that. There's no seats with respect to this exam, or at least you don't have to worry about that, right? So there are plenty of exam opportunities to go around. Only you know when you are ready. I would caution you to, again, ensure that you give yourself plenty of time, okay? But again, only you know whether or not you're ready to take the exam. It would also, I think, be wise for you to sit down with your supervisor and have a discussion about that, and even talk to them about, okay, hey boss, I've got the exam scheduled in a couple of weeks, or I'm looking to schedule it here within a couple of weeks. I need some time to really get paired. So having those open and frank conversations with your supervisor is also very important as well.
Wow, Jordan, that is a very thorough review, those exam preps and tips. I tell you, it's amazing what we've learned over the last 2 years with this exam.
Absolutely.
So fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate it. This has been a blast.
Before we go, I just want to make sure everyone understands there are lots of links in the description that Jordan was talking about, whether it's the Defense Pricing and Contracting site, where it's FAQs, the DOD Contracting Competency Model, and also links to 3990 and 3910, 3900. So you can just go right there and click on it and get to where you want to go. So thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And if you could, do us a favor. If you like this video and other ones we've done, smash the like button, please. Put comments down there for us. We read the comments. And so if you have any suggestions, please put them in there. And please subscribe either at DAU Media, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And we look forward to having future contracting conversations with you.